When I was a kid, I loved writing and illustrating stories, especially during the school holidays. And here are some of my little stories that I kept. And then when I was in my 20s, I still like writing stories for kids, but when I sent them to publishers, I got lots of rejections, and I kept all these letters from a long time ago that were rejections. When I was in my 30s, I decided that if I wanted to get published, that I should study the craft of writing and learn about the writing industry. So I began a diploma in professional writing and editing, and my favourite subject absolutely was writing for children. While I was completing my diploma, I had two educational stories published, which are these ones. And they're sold to schools here and overseas. So actually getting those published made me think, wow, I can actually do this. I can actually get something published. So it really gave me the courage to keep going. I began getting acceptances for my short stories, which were published in the school magazine. This is an example of the school magazine, goes to schools in Australia. And I had some stories, a story published in anthologies. So this is an example of one of the anthologies. But it wasn't until about 12 years later and 2 children later that I had my first trade book published, which means that it's available in bookshops. And that book is Archie Appleby, published with Wombat Books. It's a really great little reader. And so since then I've had 3 picture books published, and I have 2 more scheduled for 2021. So Boo loves books, and I'll just read the blurb so you know what it's about. Some dogs are shy and anxious, and so are some children. Can Boo and Phoebe turn their fears into a positive experience? A book that celebrates the joy of reading, and it's published by New Frontier. So it's about a little girl who was so anxious about reading until she went to an animal shelter and met Boo, and that turned everything around for her. The idea began with an article that I came across in the Huffington Post. It was about a reading program in the US where kids who struggled with reading and anxieties could go to an animal shelter and read to the cats. There was one boy who was extremely frustrated when he had to read both at school and at home. But when he participated in the program, he found that he could relax with the cats who didn't judge him, and he felt comfortable reading to them. And before long, his reading grades went up, and he talked his mother into adopting 3 of the shelter cats. When I first wrote the story, I showed it to several publishers, and when I didn't get any offers, I put it away for a year. Then one day I took it out again. I got feedback from other authors, I made some edits and sent it to 3 publishers. Within 3 months, I had an offer from New Frontier Publishing. Another point that I could mention is I found on an animal shelter website a story about one dog at a shelter. This dog had a blanket which he would carry to the front of his room each day, and he would sit with his blanket looking through the glass at people coming and going in the animal shelter. At the end of the day, he would pick up his blanket and walk to his bed at the back of his room. Made me feel very sad. And I have always wondered if this dog ended up with a home, and I wanted to give him a home in my book. Three things. I hope that children realise it's not uncommon to have anxiety about reading, and that with a little encouragement, just like Phoebe in the book, they will find a way. Number 2, to show that dogs and pets don't judge us, and how liberating that feels. And the third thing would be feeling alone like Boo does is a really sad thing. So by simply sitting together and sharing a story, both the reader and the listener can bond and feel joy. They're the 3 things. I love the illustrations for Boo Loves Books, done by Melbourne artist Tracy Grimwood. She's done what my words do not, giving shape, colour, height, length, facial expressions, body language to Boo and Phoebe, and creating the setting. When Tracy and I talked about how we could promote our book, Tracy and her partner made this book trailer. They put in some lovely little movements like eyes blinking or expressions changing. Then with some text and music, this short video captures so much about our characters and their journey. So I'm just going to show you the beautiful book trailer. So, The Friendly Games, published by Midnight Sun Publishing. I'll just read you the blurb on the back so you know what it's about. In 1956, Melbourne hosted the Summer Olympic Games. Student John Wing was so proud of his country, one of the friendliest places on earth. But when world tensions dominated the news, John wrote an urgent letter suggesting how to change the closing ceremony to bring all nations together as one. I came across John Wing's letter on the internet while researching a different story. And as soon as I read John's letter, I quickly forgot about the other story and decided to write about John instead. One of the best parts of the research was standing outside John's window in Burke Street in Melbourne, the window where he looked down from, which is featured a lot in the book. And the window is still the same as it was in 1956. The second thing is, when I submitted this story to Midnight Sun, I was so excited when Anna, the publisher, phoned me to say that they would like to publish it. And then when Anna told me that Perth artist Fiona Burrows would illustrate, I was even more excited. And Fiona and I had lots of discussions to do with research into the era surrounding 1956 Melbourne. The third thing is, I approached the International Olympic Committee to ask them about the protocol surrounding writing a book, which would require us to use Olympic symbols and wording. They asked, the International Olympic Committee asked the Australian Olympic Committee to answer my questions, which they did. They were extremely helpful and provided guidelines in the form of a license agreement, which I signed, and they approved the final version of the book. Okay, 3 things. Look, young people have a voice and they should use it, just like John did. Speak up and ask questions, write letters. John had no idea that his letter would be read, but it was, and it changed history. Number 2, during John's first 8 years of life, he felt included by a broad range of children at the children's home where he lived. When he was 17 and wrote his letter to the organising committee of the Melbourne Olympics, he wanted to promote inclusiveness between the nations. His message is timeless and a powerful reminder of how we should treat each other, not only on a grand scale like during the Olympic Games, but in our day-to-day lives as well. The third thing is that history is full of people like John, whose names may have been forgotten, but their achievements continue to make a difference. And I hope that this book, The Friendly Games, shines a light on John and how his simple, brave and thoughtful idea created something joyous and harmonious. You can always Google my name, Kaye Baillie, author, and up will come lots of different interviews and stories and all sorts of things that I've done over the years. But as a more direct way to see what I've done and what I'm doing is my website, www.kayebaillie.weebly.com. You can find out about all my books and publications and the books that I have coming out. Next March, I have a lovely, funny little book called When the Waterhole Dries Up. That's coming out with Windy Hollow Books and is illustrated by Maxine Hamilton. And that's for preschool kids about a dusty boy in the outback and the antics of the local native animals as he fills his bathtub. And I have a book called Olive Dennis Railway Engineer being released in the United States late next year. And it's about a female engineer, Olive, who designed a luxury train in the 1940s. That's coming out with the Innovation Press and will be illustrated by Tanya Stefani. And I'm really excited for both of these books. So thank you, Humans in Geelong, for having me and for giving me this opportunity, and to everyone watching. Thank you.